4th in my series of audio diaries, recording my lockdown birding, covering the period Tuesday the 26th of January to Monday the 1st of February 2021, and it includes my results from the Big Garden Birdwatch weekend. I also give a brief overview of the regular bird visitors to my garden. Welcome to the Casual Birder podcast. I'm Suzy Buttress. As a casual birder, I take time to watch birds as I go about my daily tasks. In my show, I'll tell you about the wild birds I've seen, speak with other enthusiasts, take bird walks, and share stories from listeners around the world. In this series of audio diaries made during lockdown 2021, I share the daily entries in my bird journal, telling you about the bird species I've seen, behaviours I've observed, and changes I'm noticing as the year progresses, all from an extremely local viewpoint of my garden and neighbourhood in Hampshire, England. In case you missed it, last episode I spoke with Evo Terra, host of the show Podcast Pontifications, and author of Podcasting for Dummies. Evo lived in Australia for a few months, and he tells me about his encounters with the birds that inspired his fun article, Australian Birds for Dummies. Do take a listen. This episode is brought to you by Casual Birder Weekly, the show's newsletter. I connect with you in so many places, the show's Facebook group, Instagram and Twitter, and it can mean that our contact is a little fragmented. The newsletter is a great way for us all to stay in touch. Each week, I share tips to help you get the best birding experiences, bird news that's caught my eye, recommendations for other podcasts or books I've enjoyed, and I let you know about any planned group birdwatch events. Sign up now. The link is in the episode notes. Before I launch into this week's audio diary, a comment from Leslie in the show's Facebook group reminded me that it would be helpful to describe my garden birds in a little more detail, as they might be unfamiliar to you. So here's a quick overview of the current regular visitors to my garden, with notes on size, plumage colour and general behaviour. The first two are small birds, about the size of an apricot. The Eurasian bluetit has blue upper parts and pale yellow below. They're seed and insect eaters and take food regularly from feeders, preferring sunflower hearts and suet. They're acrobatic little birds and may be seen hanging upside down while feeding. At this time of year, they can be heard calling out from trees and other high perches. The European goldfinch is a slender bird with such a colourful plumage that I think of it as a jewel in my garden. They have a caramel-coloured body with pale undersides, a red face and white cheeks. Their strong conical bill is perfect for teasing seeds out of seed heads, and they'll eat sunflower hearts from feeders. Goldfinches are starting to sing their beautiful trilling songs around now. The next three birds are slightly larger, about the size of a peach, and are mainly brown. The European robin is a very familiar garden bird. They have a red breast, a distinctive round shape, and legs that give the appearance of being quite long in relation to the body. An insect eater, robins love mealworms, but they'll also eat suet and sunflower hearts. While my robin was singing through much of the winter, I've heard it less in recent weeks. The dunnock has a streaked appearance, a mix of browns with a smooth grey throat and nape. Superficially looking like a house sparrow, but the dunnock's bill is much more slender than that of a house sparrow. Dunnocks eat insects, but they'll also take small seeds from bird feeders, and currently they can be heard singing their song from high perches. The house sparrow is a chunky bird with brown streaked upperparts and buff underparts. Males and females look different. Males have a black bib, grey crown and white cheeks, and the female has much more understated colouring and no bib. They're mainly seed eaters, but also enjoy suet and mealworms. The male's chirp can be quite loud and energetic, and I have one that calls out regularly in the garden at the moment. Eurasian blackbirds are medium-sized birds about the size of a banana. The unmistakable male is black with a yellow bill and thin yellow eye-ring. The female is mid-brown with a brown bill. During the spring, the males start to sing their fluty song from rooftops. Dunnocks, house sparrows and blackbirds will mainly be found foraging on the ground, and they prefer open trays for food, although I have seen all of these birds taking seed from hanging feeders too. Moving on to the largest birds to visit my garden, the next three are all members of the crow family, and will eat almost any food that's out there. Although the Eurasian jackdaw is the smallest member of the crow family in the UK, it's still around a foot long from bill tip to tail tip. They're very distinctive with their black body and face, greyish nape, black cap and pale eyes, and their call is a petulant-sounding chack. They often associate with rooks, a large bird with all black plumage and bare grey skin around their large pointed bills, which makes it look like they have a whitish face. If you listen regularly, you know that I have a great fondness for rooks, since getting to know the one that visits my garden for suet pellets. Eurasian magpies are striking-looking birds with a long sharp bill and a long tail that's about the same length again as the body. From a distance, they appear to have black and white plumage, but close up it's possible to see green, blue and purple iridescence in their wing and tail feathers. Magpies have quite harsh calls and can be raucous when threats, like cats, are near. A red-legged partridge is an unusual bird to find in a suburban garden, and it's possibly an escapee from a game farm or a hunt. It's about the size of a small melon, and it's a very distinctive bird, with a squat, plump body, downward pointing tail and short wings. They have sturdy red legs, hence the name, on which they walk or run. The overall plumage effect is of a brown bird with stripy sides, but up close, their plumage is really striking, a mix of plain colours and complex patterns. It eats mainly seeds and vegetation. The common wood pigeon is a heavily built, large blue-grey bird, much bigger than a feral pigeon. It has white patches on the side of the neck and white edges to the closed wings, and its head appears small in relation to its body. At close range, you can see green and purple iridescence on the sides of the neck. A seed eater, but it will also eat suet and nuts from my feeders, often balancing precariously to do so. Their wings make a loud clatter as they take off, and it serves as an alarm to other birds. I hope these brief descriptions gave you a mental picture of the birds that visit my garden. And now on to my audio diary covering the period Tuesday the 26th of January to Monday the 1st of February 2021. I'm recording this in mid-February. I'm standing at my bedroom window looking out onto my garden, which is my favourite birdwatching spot from my house because I can see pretty much all of the garden from here. It's not so great those times that neighbours over the back are out in their front gardens. I do feel a bit self-conscious, but I do my birdwatch here every morning for about half an hour. Currently, looking out into my garden, I've got a blackbird eating some mealworms that I put out earlier. I can hear a wood pigeon cooing away, and a dunnock just came to get some suet. So, week 4 of my lockdown birdwatching diaries. Tuesday the 26th of January, it was drizzly, damp and overcast. And in fact, during the birdwatch, it then started heavy rain, and it was a pretty miserable day all day. Did have a rook come into the garden and eat from the suet block. Not my friend rook, I don't think. It was just taking advantage of the fact that we had a suet block there. I had 7 species in the garden that day, but I saw 8. A herring gull flew over during the bird watch, so I was able to include that. Wednesday the 27th was a foggy, drizzly, wet, damp sort of day. I refilled the feeders around 9 o'clock and then did my bird watch. I got 10 wood pigeon in the garden that morning. Started off with about 3, and then before I knew where I was, I had 6, and then more and more seemed to keep flying in, which is fine. It's just that when one of them gets spooked, they all take off with a great clatter of wings, and that scares everything out of the garden. And generally, when that happens, it's quiet for a while afterwards. Magpie came in to take a bath in one of the bird baths and was chattering before it went in, and then while it was bathing, it was chattering all the way through as well. So it seemed like it was singing in the bath. It dunked its head and it really got absolutely soaked. And in between each soaking would go and sit on the fence and have a chatter and shake off the excess water and then get back in that bird bath and have a good old dunk again. It looked like it was really enjoying itself. The red-legged partridge was back in the garden that day. So normally what happens is it comes in and I will go out and give it a special little pile of food just for it, because the wood pigeons tend to be a bit dominant at the feeders. But while I was bending down to put the food on the ground, the red-legged partridge normally keeps a fairly wary distance from me. It actually came right up and started taking the seed that I had literally just dropped. So that put me in an awkward position, because I never like to worry it or scare it. I couldn't stand up because that would have scared it away, but my legs were starting to shake because I wasn't used to crouching down so long. So in the end I did have to scare it, but I didn't mean to. I was just not expecting it to come so close so quickly. Oh, on the 27th as well, I saw a pair of wood pigeons mating on the fence. Now, I know that they can mate all year round, so it's not particularly unusual to have them mating, but it just felt like the start of spring. So that day we'd had quite a lot of garden visitors. Could hear a song thrush again, but mostly it was the regular visitors. The 10 wood pigeon, magpie, blue-tit, blackbird, jackdaw, red-legged partridge, heard a song thrush, saw a robin, and saw a collared dove that day as well. Thursday the 28th, windy but mostly dry. Bit of an uneventful day though, so heard a song thrush calling in the dark in the morning, and the blue-tit again was calling a lot during the day. But during my bird watch, I only had 4 species. That was a song thrush that was calling, a red kite that flew over, and a blue-tit and a blackbird. Sometimes it's just like that. You feel like the weather conditions are okay, there should be birds around, and it's strangely quiet in the garden. Friday the 29th was the start of Big Garden Birdwatch weekend. I decided that I was going to do my birdwatch on the Saturday, because you can do it on the Friday, Saturday or the Sunday. As it turned out, the Saturday wasn't great, so I ended up doing it on the Sunday. But what was really lovely was, while I was pottering around during the day, I was able to watch the live bird cams that the RSPB had on their YouTube channel and Facebook group, and also they had some live shows on as well. It's really nice when that happens. It feels like, you're part of the community up and down the country taking part in the bird watch. So it was raining on Friday, and again the song thrush was calling out while it was still dark. I had only 3 species in my garden that day, although for the bird watch I did note 7 species. So song thrush I only heard, blue-tit I only heard, house sparrow I only heard, and the robin I only heard. But in my garden I saw a blackbird, dunnock and 2 wood pigeons. Saturday was wet, windy, wasn't too cold, but I just thought if it's wet it's not going to be that busy in the garden. Now I know that's not the spirit of doing the Big Garden Bird Watch. It's a snapshot, it's not trying to be the best or being in competition with anyone. But even so, you kind of feel like you want your birds to be there. So I filled the feeders up about 20 to 8 and then did my bird watch. Song thrush was calling while it was still dark. Oh yeah, and the robin flew to the suet and peanut feeder and hovered while taking a piece of suet, which was quite energetic of it. It could have landed. The areas for standing on were available and clear, but it chose to hover and take its piece of suet. Maybe it was showing off to someone. So Sunday, that was the last day I could do my bird watch, and that was the day I did it. It was a pretty cold morning. The water was frozen outside. There was a beautiful sunrise that day, and it was sunny with about half the sky covered in cloud, but it was cold. So I went out early and cleaned and refreshed the feeders. I had intended to wash all the feeders out on the Saturday because it was a bit miserable. I didn't end up going out and doing that. So I did a proper clean out of the feeders the Sunday morning, which meant that I was late then actually doing my bird watch. I held my big garden bird watch between 11:05 and 12:05. And here are the updates I made on the day. So I'm just about to start my big garden bird watch. I'll be out here for an hour. It's pretty cold, but I've got hot coffee, I've got my notepad, and I've refilled all the feeders. There's quite a few birds around, so we'll see what we see. Might need to put gloves on. Well, that's my big garden bird watch completed for this year. Had 9 species visiting, 2 jackdaw, blue tit, house sparrow, blackbird, magpie, dunnock, carrion crow, robin and wood pigeon. I sat out in our summer house, I guess you could call it, and the wood pigeon landed on the roof of the summer house during the count with a big flump, but I knew what it was. It landed in the garden shortly afterwards. But anyway, very cold and not as pleasant outside as it has been in previous years. It was much busier in the garden before the count, and for the first 20 minutes it was very, very quiet in the garden, so I was a bit worried nothing was going to turn up. But I know it's a snapshot of the usual garden visitors, and so I'm glad there were some that turned up during the actual count, but I'm happy to take part. And then about an hour after the birdwatch finished, it started snowing, so definitely time to be indoors. But I did enjoy taking part in the birdwatch, and it's always good to feel like you're part of helping with community science. And it was interesting reading what other people were seeing and trying not to get too envious about the birds they saw. Monday the 1st of February was foggy, misty, damp and drizzly, as most of the days are at the moment. The song thrush was singing out very heartily that morning. It was my first bird of the month, and here it is. Later, in my birdwatch, I saw 6 wood pigeons, the red-legged partridge, 2 jackdaw, a blackbird, robin, magpie and a blue tit all in my garden, and a rook flew over. So that was a bit of a mixed week. We'd had some snow, some wind, rain and drizzle, but the birds had been singing a lot, and that is one thing that keeps you feeling hopeful for spring, hearing the birds starting to sing, and more seem to be singing at the moment. So that's my week 4 of the lockdown Birdwatching Diaries. Personal recommendation is a powerful way to help others find the show. If you enjoy what you hear, please tell a friend or give the show a shout out on social media. You can also help support the show's production by contributing to the show's tip jar. The easiest way to do that is to buy me a virtual coffee. Your donations help fund my production costs and are very much appreciated. You'll find the link in the episode notes. Do keep in touch. Tell me about your sightings by leaving me a message on SpeakPipe or on the contact form on my website casualbirder.com. And do sign up for my newsletter, Casual Birder Weekly. Take a look at the episode notes for the links to both of these. Thank you to Randy Braun for designing the artwork for the show. The theme music is Short Sleeve Shirt by the Drones. Thanks to them for letting me use it. Check out their website at dronesmusic.net. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll join me again for another episode of the Casual Birder podcast.